And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said unto David, the Lord also hath put away sin, that thou not die. Howbeit, because this deed thou hast done great, given great occasion against the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child also that is born unto thee shall die. And Nathan departed unto his house. And the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. David therefore besought God for the child, and David fasted and went in and lay all night upon the earth. Bless the Lord today. And the elders of his house arose and went to him to raise him up from the earth, but he would not, neither did he eat bread with them. And it came to pass on the seventh day that the child died. David fasted and prayed for this child for 7 days, asking God to spare this child's life. But yet God said, this child is going to die and not live, and this child died. And at the end of this time, behold, while the child was yet a David, and when the servant of David feared to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, behold, while the child was alive, we spake unto him, and he would not hearken unto our voices. How will he then vex himself if we tell him that the child is dead? But when David saw that his servants whispered, David perceived that the child was dead. So they didn't even have to tell him the child was dead. He figured it out because they was whispering. David said unto his servants, is the child dead? And they said, he is dead. Then David arose from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his apparel and came into the house of the Lord and worshiped. Then he came to his own house, and when he required, they sent bread before him, and he did eat. Then said his servant unto him, what thing is this that thou hast done? Thou didst fast and weep. But when the child was dead, thou didst arise and eat bread. And he said, while the child was yet alive, there was hope. We're talking about hope today. David was a man after God's own heart, but David did this wicked thing, had Uriah killed, took his wife. But God sent Nathan to tell him, this thing you have done secretly, but I'm going to expose it before all the sun. Everybody's going to know what you've done. Because God, he sees all and he knows all. We can't hide anything from God. We may try to fool ourselves and trick ourselves, but God knows what we've done. And God told David the child was going to die, and truly the child died. But because David had no pity, David pronounced death upon himself. He said the man that has done this thing ought to die for what he's done. But before he dies, he needs to restore 4 times what he's taken. One of the things we have problem with today, we have a lack of compassion, a lack of pity. And that's what this man, he said of this man who did this, but he was actually talking about himself. He said, you have no pity. Lots of times we just don't know what it means to have mercy, to have pity on another. David had no pity. And that was the problem. Today we're talking about the need for mercy, compassion. David had a man killed so that he could have his wife. But afterwards, the child died because David had sinned a great sin in the sight of God. We need to make sure that whatever we're doing, we are trying to please God and not just ourselves. For God had told David if what he had done for him, if it had been too little, he could have asked for such and such. And anything he had asked of God, God would have granted it to him. But rather than asking God, he decided to go take another man's wife. That is the tragedy we get into. Many times we want to do what we want to do. We want to take and get what we want to get and not acknowledge the Lord. Scripture says, in all thy ways acknowledge him. Let him